Hello, and welcome back to another video game story time with me, Sky Fellowship. And today's episode is actually going to be a difficult one to do because on a technicality I'd need two people to be able to show it off, and I'd need to be able to set up a specific level, because it was always weird in old video games that for a lot of moments you could choose between one player and two player on games, and player 1 was always locked into a certain character, but player 2 actually had free roam. And Pocky and Rocky 2 is one where, as a kid, when we used to rent games from Blockbuster, I was always the youngest at the time, and basically that meant I got player 2 syndrome, essentially, so I always had to be player 2. I never really got a choice in a lot of things, and in a lot of games, that was like one player played as Mario, one as Luigi, stuff like that, and it didn't really matter that much. But in games like Pocky and Rocky 2, it was one of the few games where I actually loved playing as player 2, because player 1 was always, okay, time to fess up. Pocky is the main character, right? Because Rocky is the raccoon. So you always played as Pocky, if memory serves. And player 2, meanwhile, got to play as, like, the side characters. And there was a specific side character in Pocky and Rocky 2, and I can't remember the name of it. It'll probably have a full official name, but it was essentially a scarecrow, and if memory serves, used to throw bombs. And again, this is what I mean. I'd love to be able to actually set up a two-player game and have me playing as the scarecrow character and actually being able to say, oh yeah, this is the name and this is the bombs and everything, but I'm only me. I'm just here. So I'm playing as Pocky. And I always really appreciated it when devs actually cared about player 2, and I can only assume that it's devs who might have actually gone through this, because at the end of the day, people have been making video games their entire lives. That there are some people out there who got into game developing as a teenager, so it's entirely possible that they'd grew up on the NES era, and it was like, you know what, my brother always forced me to play as Luigi, and I didn't want to play as Luigi, so you know what then, player 1 is going to have the main character, but player 2 is going to have the fun characters. And it was rare, but games like this do exist, and it was always absolutely amazing being able to actually fucking essentially make player 1 jealous. The amount of times where I would then get into arguments over certain people, and it's like, well, I'm player 1, so I'm playing as this character, and it's like, no, that's fine, I'll play as player 2 on this, and then as soon as, like, it is one of those games where it's a good character, it's like, well, I want to be player 2? No. That's not how this works. You always say, I'm player 1. You don't say, I'm player 1 because I'm the best character. Now, we all know that that's why a lot of people picked player 1. We all know this. But your entire spiel is, I'm player 1. This is the one time where player 2 actually gets to fucking be someone cool. You can't just go around and go, oh, well, I'm the best character. That's pretty shitty of you. So, no, you're not player 2 on this game, I'm player 2 on this game. And obviously, there's a lot of games out there that actually give you a choice. I grew up playing Zombies Ate My Neighbours with my, at the time, best friend. And Zombies Ate My Neighbours lets you choose between Zeke and Julia, and it was always a case of, who do you want to be? I didn't really care, I liked both of them. Usually he would pick Julia, I would pick Zeke, purely because he liked Julia a little bit more, but it's one of those, it didn't really matter. That was one of those games where there were no actual differences. They were both the exact same character, just not really. And, like, it was just a sprite change, essentially. But it was always one of those rare moments where player 2 actually kind of got to have the upper hand when you got games like a Pocky and Rocky. And I can't even think of that many that existed, but I'm glad that we're at a point in gaming where that's not really an issue anymore. And if you're playing in an online thing, usually you're either playing as your own character, or usually it could be a case of it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm going to use an example from Destiny, which I bring up Destiny a lot, but it's because I played it a lot. Destiny, you had 3 classes, Warlock, Hunter, and Titan. You could make a raid team of all 6 Hunters if you wanted, all 6 Titans, all 6 Warlocks. It wasn't really very advisable, but you could actually do it, and at least it's cool that we've got to that point with gaming. It wasn't a case of, like, for example, Overwatch. I don't even play Overwatch, but I know this is a problem in Overwatch. There are people who will only play as specific characters, and the way that game works, it locks you into, you're only allowed, if memory serves, because I've never actually played Overwatch, I don't play those sorts of games, but from what I have gathered from second-hand knowledge, I think there's a number of healers, a number of DPS characters, a number of defensive characters that you're allowed to pick. So if all of those healer slots come up and you only play as a healer, there'll be people who intentionally either tank the game or just like quit out because they don't get their way. They don't get to play as a character they like, and they don't want to play as a character they either dislike or they're bad at. And some of that comes down to humility, where it's like, oh, well, I'm amazing as this character and I want to show off and show that I'm the best, you know? And it's like, no one really cares. Like, seriously, no one really cares. Just, like, if you can't play as the character you want to play as, just play as someone else. And yeah, you might suck, but you might then get to play as the good character in the next time and show, actually, I'm pretty good at this. Going back to Destiny, when we used to actually do raids with my team, there were different people who were better at different classes. And one of them, he was amazing at the Hunter, he was decent at the Titan, and he was absolutely awful as the Warlock. And meanwhile, I was decent as the Hunter, decent as the Titan, and God tier as the Warlock. And he would always be absolutely stunned, going, how the hell do you even do this as the Warlock? You're doing stuff that I do with my Hunter, the speedy, fast Hunter, that I'm doing with a Warlock. And, like, you're absolutely obliterating things. I cannot do that. How do you actually play that with a Warlock? And it's like, well, it's just that the playstyle is totally different, and I obviously tried to help him out because at the end of the day he wanted to get better, and eventually I'd managed to teach him essentially the mindset of playing as the solo character. And instead of being reactionary, you have to set things up and you have to have specific roles and specific jobs, and it actually managed to really help him out. But even then, when playing on the likes of Crucible, he would always complain when playing Warlock, and it's like, because that's the one part I hated playing PvP, so it's the one part where I couldn't really give any tips and see how to play as a Warlock in Crucible. I'm just like, yeah, you'll just do what you do, you're better at me anyway, so even you playing as the Warlock and being really shit, you're still playing a lot better than I would. So this is just one of those, you'll just have to suffer, essentially, if you're not enjoying the playing as a Warlock in Crucible. But even in games where they do actually give these sorts of class restrictions, it's never really that enforced on you, and it's usually I can't think of the word. It's usually, I guess, self-inflicted. That's what I'm looking for. It's usually a self-inflicted moment where it's like, do you actually have to do all of this with all of the characters? Or do you just want to because you want to have everything for all of them? Like, there's a lot of times like that in games where it's like, you could actually have played through all of Destiny without ever making more than one character. You could have played that entire game from start to finish as a Titan, and it wouldn't really matter. It was only specific players who wanted to do everything with all three of the characters, and then you had people who, again, complained about the characters, and it's like, he wanted all of the gear for all of the classes and all the subclasses and stuff like that, so it was definitely self-inflicted with him. Whereas myself, I mostly only played as a Warlock, and I only actually created a Titan and a Hunter because the raid team started to need them. Because certain raids, it was a case of, well, actually, as much as you can do everything with a Warlock, this would be easier with a Hunter. And everyone had already used all of their Hunters. There were literally no Hunters left. So it was a case of, well, I guess I'll create a Hunter then and run it up so that we can actually start having split raid teams where it was like, I'll run my Warlock as my first raid, I'll run the Titan as my second raid, I'll run the Hunter as the third raid, which means as a Warlock, I'm a cleaner, killing adds, which means as a Titan, I'm a defender, I'm putting the bubble to protect us. As a Hunter, I'm being the sword wielder, and I'm killing everything with the sword and taking down the bosses. It's loads of little things like that, whereas at least, I guess, in older games, as I say it, for the most part, you had Mario and Luigi. You had the Snow Brothers, where they were both the same. You had Bob and Bob. They were both the same. It was just different colours. It was very rare that you actually got a game like Pocky and Rocky, where it was like, oh yeah, now I'm playing as a Scarecrow that throws bombs. Now I'm playing as a Tanuki that has a different attack style. Now I'm playing as this, that, and the other. Like that Ogre that was throwing the balls, if memory serves. You can play as that on Player 2 as well. But on one player mode here, I'm essentially locked in and I've got an EI as my... EI might be a little generous. I mean, it still is EI, but like EI might be sounding a bit more advanced than what it is. I've got a rudimentary sprite following behind me doing a couple of basic attacks while I'm trying to take care of things. And it's like, if this was actually two-player, one of us would be able to focus on the ads and one of us would be able to focus on the actual door. So yeah, calling it an EI is... probably a little generous, but it was rare that you actually got different characters that did different things and had different abilities. And yeah, I've definitely waffled. I've definitely lost my original point of thought and train of thought. And I think it's because I've recorded way more videos today than I meant to. But it's because I've been working on projects. Because, as you might have noticed, this is a S.N.E.S game. I've been basically trying to actually get all of the older consoles and games set up so that I can actually record videos on my new capture software and be able to actually talk about some older games, because at the end of the day, this channel always started as a classic game thing, and doing a lot of modern day stuff, that's really easy. Doing a lot of classic stuff, it's been 5 days of constant fucking work to sort it all, and I finally got it to that point of being able to do it. So naturally I wanted to record all the videos that over the past 5 days I've been like, okay, when I get the S.N.E.S set up I need to record this, when I get the N64 set up I need to record this, when I get the PlayStation set up I need to record this. So I've been just recording those videos, and now I'm at the point of I need a break. So I'm going to say until next time, I truly do hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, if there's any games where you were forced to play as a character that you really didn't want to play as just because someone else was player one, sound off below and see maybe if that's why you've got a hatred for certain characters. I was at least lucky with the fact that we all hate Mario and we're Luigi fans in this house. Well, I say this house, the house we were growing up in. We were all Luigi fans, so I was actually fine playing as Luigi on Mario games because we all hated Mario. But for the most part, it was a case of player 2 really gets some shitty characters. And I know that still actually happens, thinking about it. Going to Mario Odyssey and Donkey Kong Bonanza have those modes where it's like player 2 plays as a kinda character that kinda helps out. So it's like they get to do shouts as Pauline, they get to, I think the player's Cappy in Mario Odyssey, and they get to collect like coins and stuff. It's like, it's all the sort of stuff that's kind of been designed more as, not in the same way of the older sibling, younger sibling dynamic that we used to have back in the day. It's more a case of adults wanting to play games with their kids, and it's like, yeah, this is way too advanced for a kid to be playing, because like, when we were growing up, there were a lot of kids who struggled when the S.N.E.S came out. Genuinely. When it went from, wait a minute, there's now, instead of start select A and B, there's A, B, X, Y, L, R start and select. That's too many buttons. And now we have consoles where it's like, okay, off the top of my head, left trigger, left bumper, right bumper, left stick in, right stick in, A, B, X, Y. I don't even know what they call them these days, but on a technicality, start and select. Then you've also got the actual Xbox button. Then you've got the actual menu button. Then if you're on the PlayStation, you've got this little like pad that you can swipe directions on. Like, it's no wonder that games are really difficult to get into, which is why I've actually got a series about getting into games these days. Because yeah, I can't imagine playing something like that as my first ever game. I can't imagine Mario Odyssey as my first ever Mario game. I would really struggle, I have a feeling, because it's too much to learn all at once. So I understand why 2-player games like that these days have those very basic modes, whereas with these games, it was a case of, no, it was just like, 2-player was kind of a luxury. Not every kid had a 2-player, so let's not really bother putting the effort in making a second playable character actually worthwhile, because most kids aren't going to do that anyway. And then when it turned out actually a lot of kids did do that and people complained, you would get games like this where it's like, okay, then let's give 2 players and make the second player have the advantage. And it still sucks that you still had that choice. I still would have preferred where, and I know Street Fighter is a totally different beast, but the likes of Street Fighter, where instead it's a case of player 1 can be Ryu, but so can player 2. Player 1 can be Ken, but so can player 2. Player 1 can be Zangief, but so can player 2. Being able to actually fully choose the roster was definitely the way to go about it. Yeah, waffling over. I'm going to say until next time, I've been Sky Fellowship. I truly do hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!